Well, Phil, preseason's about to start. Off-season is in its waning days, moments even. As we record this, I believe Austin FC players are reporting back officially.
They up this early?
Are they up this early? Who knows? One thing I do know is that the way that the winter transfer window has gone so far, I mean, we'll talk about this later, but Austin's got a full roster.
Yep.
Some would say fuller in some positions than it necessarily needs. But I noticed that there's a troubling trend of a few teams in MLS who have gone neglected, who have transferred a lot out and not transferred in very much. And San Jose and St. Louis are the two that come to mind of ones that have transferred in no one and transferred out multiple people.
Possibly San Diego too.
I mean, maybe looking that way. And then Minnesota, I mean, their coach is about to go across the Atlantic. Dane St. Clair is playing for Miami now.
Robin Lode's playing for Chicago.
You could call Minnesota St. Paul.
You could,
I think
that's where they play.
I think the common trait that we've got here is that the Saints have forsaken these teams.
Oh yeah.
Some would say God.
San Jose.
San Jose. San Luis.
San Diego.
San Pablo. San Diego. I think these four teams need to get to church already.
Yeah, the Saints are marching out. Do I want to be in that number?
Emergency podcast. Verde did a thing, so we gotta talk about it. Emergency podcast. It's an emergency. Emergency podcast. Shut up, hell yeah, shut up, hell yeah, shut up. Emergency podcast. It's an emergency.
Hey, a hearty hello to you all, and welcome to Emergency Podcast, the Austin FC podcast, where we talk about all the Austin FC emergencies, the University of Oregon emergencies. If you watched the national semifinal last night, you saw Indiana crush my newly beloved Oregon, since my oldest son goes there. That's going to be Indiana and Miami in the national championship game. If that is your proclivity, that is going to be happening on the 19th in 9 days on a Monday night. That's weird, but we got soccer to talk about here, too, in this first podcast that we are doing in 2026. Moisés, how are you doing? How is the new year treating you? And how excited are you for Beep Test Day, which is what today is?
I mean, for me, Beep Test Day also falling in the day when the weather is turning cold again. I'm glad that it's cold again. It's supposed to be cold. It's the winter. Austin should at least act like we have seasons occasionally. Give us a break from the heat. You know, we'll see how long this holds out. But yeah, it's nice putting layers back on in the wilds of January.
Indeed it is. Yeah. Yeah. Had to do that this morning walking the dogs. I wasn't as prepared as I thought I would be. Yeah. Of course, my husky is always prepared for this kind of weather. My husky enjoys that, so in particular. Well, let's get into it. We've got a lot of interesting things to talk about. Not necessarily
like huge headline news, but
no,
interesting stuff going on.
Yeah. So, and let's go ahead. This dropped on Friday. We got a preseason schedule. We finally got all the games together. We knew about half the schedule because of the Coachella Valley Invitational that was set, and usually before the team goes off to Palm Springs for 10 days, they do a series of games here. So what we learned is Saturday, January 24th, they're going to play San Antonio FC. They're our USL friends from down the road. Of course, the first Open Cup opponents, which you might remember from way back when. And then, of course, Wednesday, January 28th, our Damian Loss co-parent, Louisville City FC. They're coming to town. And then Sunday, February 1st at 2 p.m., they're playing New York City FC. And this is special because, again, San Antonio and Louisville, we assume that's going to be at St. David's. We assume that's going to be a possible Verde Hill game. But Sunday, 2 p.m., if you have your season tickets, you might notice if you've gone into your SeatGeek account over the last day, you have tickets in your seats for this particular game. Yes, you will be allowed into Q2. You will be allowed to actually see the team. So that is exciting. We got to see a practice last year when it was extremely cold, speaking of cold, but we didn't get to see a full-on game. We're going to get to see a full-on game, which is pretty exciting. And then, of course, they go on to Coachella. Probably one of the last Coachella, as we covered in Verde all day. Palm Springs in February is a lot more friendly to soccer than Palm Springs in June. They're going to play St. Louis City FC on Saturday the 7th. They're going to play Chicago Fire FC, the recent destination of Robin Lod, as we talked about in the intro. That's on Wednesday, February 11th, and then Saturday, February 14th, Sporting Kansas City. We don't know if any of those are going to stream. Typically, one of those do, and it really just kind of depends on the clubs and what they want to do. Austin's generally, or so they've told us, been pretty friendly about having those streams happen. When they don't happen, it is the fault of the other teams. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So we'll see what we actually get visual wise to see the team before the season opener later in February against Minnesota. But this is good news. Definitely excited that they're going to be playing in Q2. NYCFC will be fun to see them. Of course, they have hooked up before on friendlies, typically summer friendlies, but yeah, something they do. So Moisés, what strikes you about this particular slate of preseason games?
Well, it's interesting in a couple directions. One, as you mentioned, last year there was the open practice, which press were invited to, season ticket holders were invited to, and people would pass around their unused season ticket holder tickets to their pals. And Mortigo was there. It was a great atmosphere.
It was fun. Yeah,
it was great. I think I characterized it as the first step into a new era of the relationship and the openness of the doors when it came to the front office, more directly cultivating a maturing fan base rather than a brand new fan base in its infancy.
Could not feel my feet, but it was great.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is Q2 in February, which sometimes is balmy and sometimes is full on winter storm. But as you rolled out those dates, as that last Coachella Valley game happens on, did you say February 14th?
Yep.
Typically, that weekend is roughly when the New Jersey drop happens.
Okay.
And remind me, Phil, when does the season actually start?
February 21st.
February 21st. So with them being in Coachella that Saturday, is it possible that they get right back to town and there's some sort of an event on Sunday the 15th?
Maybe. Also, though, there is a Oak Collective party at Q2, which is happening on February 5th. So I'm wondering, right before they go to Coachella, do they do a special little jersey reveal there?
Well, that's what I'm thinking is the other thing that we haven't mentioned that also is part of this is the Winter Olympics start on February 6th. So if you don't want to be fighting an ongoing Olympics, because those Olympics run through the 22nd, maybe we see that jersey reveal, we see the league-wide jersey reveal happen a little bit earlier than we're used to it happening, even though a variety of them have leaked. It could be that they are working with Adidas and are getting better at Adidas keeping the lid on things. So yeah, that's the New Jersey related news that isn't news, that is just wild speculation that I wanted to throw out there.
We have not seen any leaks yet, by the way.
Nope. We haven't seen it. Neither one. You could hold us both to it. Neither one of us has heard anything. People who presumably have seen it have not whispered to us, but you can always whisper to us. We won't mind. We'll keep your identity secret from the hit squads that would want to take you out. I think the vibe of getting the preseason going with that kind of open game, albeit only to season ticket holders, tickets not being sold, nothing in any of the press releases indicating that press will actively be invited. But look, if anybody with a ticket can get in, finding people with tickets is what the true sickest of the sickos in the press box do when it's not a press availability type of an event.
I have a ticket. I'll be in section 121.
Season ticket holder Phil West.
Yeah, we're back. We're back. Yeah. My wife wanted tickets after a year away. We are paying quite a bit of money for section 121 seats, but that is the ideal section, though. I think you get to see the Murga doing their thing from across the stadium. It's generally shaded. Yeah, good sight lines. You get to stand up with the North End people during corner kicks. A lot of fun. It's a good place.
I feel like Mrs. West has voted in favor of the Uzuni-sans. That's what that says to me. We'll get to that a bit later when we talk about the roster, but yeah, I mean that's the way that I'd put a button on it. Is I think that's a good, respectable preseason lineup. I know that there are people who are planning to go out to Coachella, if not the last, probably the penultimate preseason in Coachella, and then maybe we look to Europe for the summer preseason setup.
Okay.
Maybe they shift out there. I don't know. We'll get more of an idea of that as time goes on. I'm sure that they don't even know at this point.
Yeah, Coachella's a good time though. If you are going, happy to give you some travel tips. So, because I did it a couple of years ago, learned some things about kind of what you should do, what you should not do, but it's fantastic. It's a great time. So, and it's going to be maybe they will do it as a mid-season tournament. I would be sad to see it go, but again, yeah, I don't want to go to Palm Springs in June. I don't think so. Just why replicate what I'm in now? So,
Well, up next, depending on how somebody types it out, it could be misread as Owen Wolff and Dani Pereira resign
that is always a tricky
Austin
one.
FC.
Resigning.
Re-signing or resigning. So both of them signing extended contracts, which,
Yep.
I mean, off the dome, it's good whether they stay. It's good whether they end up getting sold for giant piles of money. What's your take on this, Phil? Is there anything to read into the tea leaves?
Yeah, so I've written about this on Verde all day while those deals were still fresh. So Owen Wolff's new deal, he's a U22 initiative player now. So again, that was an option that we thought Rodolfo Borrell might activate. Again, he was on a supplemental deal, can't be on that forever. As a homegrown, as a player who came into the team fairly young, came in during the inaugural season, later in the inaugural season, but still in 2021. So this is a best case scenario, keeping him on the senior roster again, because of the roster rules. We're not quite sure if it's 200 or 250,000 that he is going to count against the cap for, but he'll be able to be paid considerably more than that. He will still count on a relatively club-friendly number through the duration of his contract, which is June 2030, which I think is probably the maximum that you can be on a U22 for, because it has to do with you have to sign this before you're 22, hence under 22 initiative, and then has to conclude, I think, this season when you turn 25. So that is where that math comes in. He says, allegedly, I'm excited to commit once again to the club with a capital C and to the city, and I'm confident we can achieve big things. Yeah, I think this is good. This does not mean that he will necessarily be staying with the club through 2030, but this locks him into that club friendly number for as long as he possibly can. To me, this says, okay, this is preparatory. Owen still might move. The Dani deal is a little bit different. And I think just based on that, based on him being here on a similar sort of timeline, looking at that particular deal, it is through the 27-28 season with an option year in 28-29. That is not going to get easier to say, these kind of split season number things that we do, but that is our new reality. So would stay here until June 29, theoretically. That's just before he turns 29. So he's going to be in his prime years in Austin unless he moves. And I think it's increasingly unlikely that he moves to Europe now. I think this is an indication with this deal that he is an MLS lifer and he is committing to Austin. We still don't know exactly what he is, truly. Kind of more of a jack of all trades, number 8 right now, than the number 6 that apparently he was fashioning himself as during the start of his career, which I think maybe had more to do with Josh Wolff than Dani Pereira's own desires. But yeah, we've got him now as whatever he will be for this midfield for the next few years. I think it's a good move overall. What do you think about? Obviously, Owen had incredible contributions last year. What do you think about Owen and Dani together and for however long that this might last?
They're really solid. We've gone over it many times. They're two of the most solid, dependable pieces on the roster. They have been through a lot together. They connect well. They connect well with other players. To me, one of the litmus tests for new incoming transfers is how well do they link up with Owen and Dani? Because if they can't link up with Owen and Dani, I don't know how well they're going to link up with other guys on the team, because these are two of the most practiced, most crucial pieces in the roster, as Tom Bogert said online. For me, redoing both of these deals, to me, is table stakes. It's something that in the Borrell era, I expect it. I don't wonder about it, worry about it, the way that I guess San Jose fans had to worry about, were they going to remember to renew Christian Espinosa's deal?
With Nashville.
I kind of expected that we would get this before everybody officially reported back, if not as a grace note to the prior to reporting in preseason timing, one of the last things we would hear before everybody reported back in.
Yep. And Dani also has the institutional knowledge, right? So he was an OG. He was the number one super draft pick in the initial super draft in December 2020. So that is, again, yeah, he's been here the whole time. He has, among Austin FC players, obviously behind Stuver in terms of overall caps, but he's right up there. And I expect that he will continue to accumulate those as we go through these seasons, plural, that we expect him to be here for. What you're saying in terms of incoming players, trying to figure out how those incoming players fit around Owen and Dani. Again, trying to figure out where Owen's going to play this year is a big question. Are they going to deploy him more centrally? How is Dani's role going to change? And then, yeah, what midfield pieces did they need around that, right? Because again, Ilya Sanchez, we expect him to get some minutes, but maybe not as many. So Dubrasarski, I imagine, will step up in minutes as he gets a year older and hopefully a year better. Sabovic, still some questions there. My running theory has been new dad lack of sleep has harmed him, and his kid is now probably in the zone where sleeping more. So maybe he's more rested. Maybe he's better coming into this new preseason that they are all preparing for. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. We're going to talk in a second about the current state of the roster, but yeah, those are things that jump out to me in terms of thinking about this is how is the team going to rotate around those centerpieces?
I've said this at different stages, more or less jokingly, but there's always been a tinge of seriousness behind it. What happens if they play Owen like a 10? What if that is the role that Owen levels up into? And as much as he's talked about wanting to go to Europe and the Europe pathway being a big desirable thing, there is also something to playing somewhere that you are getting the minutes, where we've seen various really talented young American players playing in European leagues and not getting minutes or getting shuffled to the second string and then traded somewhere else and still not getting the minutes. That's got to be something that factors into it. And he's smart enough that I don't think he would make those kinds of decisions in isolation of, just any Europe transfer would do it. And I think that Austin continuing to make it worth his time to be here is one of the smartest things that they can do in terms of investing in the future, because if he does end up getting transferred out for a giant sack of money, then great. They're just boosting his value on the field and with the intangibles. And if he ends up hanging around and becoming a league megastar, that is the best way to keep your top talent happy as he keeps maturing and growing.
Right. So in terms of thinking about Owen as a 10 rather than a box-to-box 8, which is what I still think he's best at, ostensibly you're starting the season with a front line, I would guess, of Nelson, Fodry, Ozuni. Nelson is more of a left wing than a right wing, but can definitely play both. So I guess wherever Ozuni is most comfortable is Nelson. Nelson is the offset of that. And then you have Owen playing behind them. Again, of course, if they are going to settle into kind of a 4-4-3 kind of situation. But again, I would expect maybe, 3-5-2, 5-3-2 kind of setup in at least some of these games. And maybe trying initially Ozuni and Fodry up top until Vasquez returns from injury. I'm curious to see, are they still gonna try to get Owen out on the wing because that's where he can play and function and they need that? Or because Nelson is ostensibly a Bukri replacement, but does his abilities, does what he can do, does that somehow kind of change the configuration? That's going to be an interesting thing to see. Owen could probably develop into a 10, but I don't know that that's necessarily best. But maybe for his development at this point, getting those kind of skills and being forced into that kind of true playmaker role might be a really, really good thing for his development.
Yeah, to me, the question is, starting out the season tactically, are they looking at building around the two striker setup so that when Vasquez is back, he just drops right in? Or do they play something adaptive that works without Brandon involved, without the two striker thing, to work some stuff out and see what they can do in ways that allow them the flexibility to shift back to dual strikers when Vasquez is back in? Or are they looking at lining up differently based on the way things worked, or rather didn't work, with Vasquez and Uzuni on the field at the same time last year.
Right. And again, this is assuming that Uzuni is going to stay with the team, which I think right now all signs are pointing to that. Even though Uzuni is a new hotelier, apparently, according to Instagram.
This episode brought to you by Uzuni Hotel, the finest new hotel available in Albania. Let's dive into the roster thing. Phil, last time we recorded, I gotta admit, you convinced me to let my darker self in. You convinced me to will the thing that you wish for the most in life, the thing that you are most passionate about, the thing that you...
What is that?
That you want most, which is a last-minute transfer out of Mirto Uzuni. And Phil, I don't think it's going to happen anymore, and I can't believe you led me astray. One of us has to keep the faith, and I've got to say, I'm going to get back on the side of the double eagle-winged Angels.
Yeah, I don't think that's the thing I want most necessarily, although we will talk about a scenario in a little bit here, but yeah, again, if there is an Uzuni redemption arc in 2026, I'll be thrilled. I'll be thrilled for him. I'll be thrilled for the team. I'll be thrilled for everybody who roots for Austin FC, and I will enjoy it. I just didn't necessarily see that happening coming out of the playoffs and seeing what I saw with my eyes. But again, he's a talented player and those things could happen. But for now, there was also a Biru rumor. Biru was supposed to theoretically, we got some Instagram signs that he was going to be out, and now there are Instagram signs that he is back.
The Instagram rumor stuff was that folks were sniffing around that Austin was looking at selling him somewhere. And then
the agent,
could be the agent pushing it, who knows? But a very recent post on Instagram indicating that the family is coming back to their, quote, beloved Austin.
After the earlier post where the agent was talking about working out the future with Biru. Kind of nebulous, but not really nebulous.
And that's the thing, is it could be that there was maybe a deal to look at and it fell apart. Could be maybe it comes back together for the summer transfer window and he's just here a scant 6 months. Who knows? But it would indicate that at least the family is traveling back to Austin for him to report in for the start of preseason.
Right, which makes sense because he's still with the team, so that's what you do.
We've got a media availability advisory for Monday morning, so we'll see who's around, I guess.
Right. Yeah. And that's supposed to be with Nico Estevez and Dani Pereira, of course, because Dani has signed that new deal. He's committed to Austin, so they're going to give him some time on the mic, and we'll get to see the 2026 version of Dani Pereira in front of the media, which definitely he evolved, I think, in 2025. Definitely a good year of maturity for him. Got to see some candor from him, and yeah, it was good. It was a good year for him, and excited to see through, of course, other people's eyes because of day job how that will go on Monday. But back to the roster. So it's full, no more work to do, 20 senior spots taken, especially if Biru is staying, then you've got a complete team. You've got 3 left backs in Biru, Rosales, and Kolmanic. You've got a new winger in Nelson. You've got Vasquez theoretically coming back maybe April, maybe May in the most kind of optimistic framework of that. And you get Uzuni having a full preseason, which he did not have last year. So kind of interesting, but do we think they're done? Do we think that they are satisfied and this is the team that we are going to head into the opener with Minnesota with?
I don't think Roto's done, because him having weeks yet to play with stuff, there isn't a giant amount of work. There isn't a pile of slots to fill, as you pointed out. At this point, it's cleaning up and nipping and tucking. It feels like there's going to be something else. Like something else is going to shake loose.
There is an O'Brien rumor that he is headed to Deportivo Cali, I believe, in Colombia.
And if Obi's on the way out, then what's coming in?
Theoretically, another winger.
What shape does that take? That's the question.
Right. Yeah. That's a big question. There is a winger available.
Really?
We'll get to in a second.
Just one, or one particular one?
One particular one. But we'll anything else though that you see in outgoing moves. And we've talked about Robert Taylor. We've talked about the buyout possibility there. Nothing on the table yet.
I don't play Football Manager, the game, or the speculative game necessarily outside of my podcast life. Robert Taylor's another one where the chants came loud of buy him out, buy him out, buy him out. He's washed. Get rid of him. There's something about the fight that he showed up in those first minutes that he played for the club coming in after the preseason last year. Like Uzuni, I want to see this guy get a fair shake of a full preseason to gel with his teammates, because when he did play those last minutes of 2025, he was going for it. Was he perfect? No. Was he great? Absolutely not. No. But I don't know. He seems like a solid locker room presence, seems to get along, go along well. I think that one of the most dangerous things that you can have is a player with something to prove who is able to maintain focus. And he definitely has something to prove. It's a question of whether he can show that focus again.
And I remember your working theory was that, pre-injury and post-injury, two different players, and with some time away, some time off to recuperate, that we could be getting more of what we saw initially from Robert Taylor than what we got towards the tail end of the season once he returned.
Yeah, and I think that's what I'm sticking with. And it's not the hottest take, the sexiest take. Each new season is an opportunity for renewal in MLS. And like one of the things that I like about MLS is that, yes, there are cutthroat aspects to it for sure. But there have been those crazy sophomore jumps that people take in their second year with a club, where the first year was a bit rocky. It was an unexpected trade. They're suddenly uprooting their lives and all that, or an injury comes in, who knows? And I think that this is a player that has potential that shouldn't necessarily be written off before we see what a full preseason can do for him.
Right. There are two wolves inside of me. One is a optimistic fan wolf, and the other is a skeptical journalist wolf. They are constantly wrestling. So that is, again, the duality that I live with. On one hand, Taylor and Uzuni, if they have resurgent seasons in 2026, I'm very happy. It's fun to write about that. It's fun to celebrate that and watch that on the field.
Look,
but also,
yeah,
I'm someone who also would not be surprised if they have struggles in 2026, just because that's the kind of cold, callous person that I am.
I get it. You love your charts. You love your charts, and the charts.
I do love my charts.
The charts, like those who are aficionados of astrology, to you, the charts, they tell the whole story of what's to come.
Oh dear.
I'll throw this out there. I am aware that there is there is a fan out there who is committed to getting a tattoo of Mirto Uzuni's face on his backside if Mirto Uzuni wins the Golden Boot this year. So let's get that Golden Boot.
Okay, I'm rooting for that now.
Let's get that Golden Boot. Okay? That's all I'm going to say.
I do know someone, there is a Sounders fan that I wrote about a number of years ago who got Celine Dion's face on his butt in response to the Sounders winning a trophy that he didn't think that they would win.
See, there's a precedent for it. So what else we got, Phil? What else we got?
Okay,
we're in the doldrums.
Yes and no. We've got preseason coming up. We've got some things that we're going to be beginning to write about. And again, I do expect that there are going to be some roster moves that we are going to be talking about. But I dropped this in at the end of my Friday article because the biggest news out of MLS Friday was not the Dani Pereira signing, although certainly that was of import to us. But one, Chucky Lozano, who was with San Diego, heralded in their debut season. He was going to be the face of the franchise. And then Andres Dreyer had the season that he had, and that kind of shifted. And Lozano ended the season maybe not on the best note. Apparently some conflicts with Mikey Varas, apparently some locker room stuff. Didn't figure into the tail end of the season for them and their eventual number one seed and their journey to the Western Conference Final, where Vancouver finally vanquished them. But did much better than a lot of us, myself included, expected at the start of the season, but Lozano did not figure into that as we thought. So Tyler Heaps, who is their sporting director, let it be known that Lozano does not figure into San Diego's 2026 plans, which immediately undermines their bargaining position with Lozano. But he is available. He is very expensive, $6 million base salary, north of $7.6 million guaranteed last year. But speaking of the charts that I love, not astrology charts, much more scientific than that, much more data-driven than that. Saw his production next to Mirto Uzuni's production over the last 365 days, and it's pretty stunning. And so the question becomes, and again, we know that we know that Anthony Precourt was in for Chicharito some years ago. We know that if there's a lot of money to spend on a star Mexican player, he might be game for that. Perhaps Lozano just needs a change of scenery. Perhaps Zuni just needs a change of scenery. Could we see a trade? Could we possibly see a straight up old-fashioned MLS trade bringing Murdo Zuni to San Diego, where he would benefit from Andres Dreyer and the other players that are there, the service that he would get, maybe instantly elevating his game. We saw Pellegrini do much better in San Diego than he did in San Jose. So that's certainly a system where he could do that. And then Lozano on the other side, who could obviously play as a wing, but could also play straight up as a center forward, bringing an additional level of flash and panache to the team. Rodolfo Borrell does not typically, as I'm gathering, like to gather very, very expensive DPs. Prided himself on having some budget-friendly designated players on the squad, building it the way that he did. But would that be irresistible for him and for Precourt if he is available and you could swing something like that? Again, this is a player who quit on his team like late in the season, wasn't a big factor in the playoffs. That's not great, but intriguing, right?
Well, Phil, you're talking in the direction of why I think this is a terrible idea. On the one hand, it's not that I don't think there is motivation or interest from this front office and ownership in spending when they got to spend. But I think one of the reasons that, as you pointed to, Rodo is so proud of the way that he set up his DPs was, did they all involve a lot of money? Yes, absolutely. But they weren't on a Lozano level, an Insigne level of, if it doesn't work out, how do you move them? Not like if, I mean, you're gonna, but how do you move them? And with the very transparent on its face locker room nightmare that it was, San Diego sold themselves as they are the Chucky Lozano factory. It's where you get all of your Chucky Lozano. They were building their entire identity around him. And then it turns out that that player decided that, yes, he runs the entire club. He is in charge of everything. He is going to call shots. He is going to tell his coach what to do and then get into shouting matches with his coach. I don't know this sporting operation based on previous and recent moves. I don't think that they want to invite that sort of atmosphere into their locker room, where if Uzuni took a bit to get acclimated and worked in among his teammates, having missed the preseason, when you have a guy of Chucky's personality, who rightly or wrongly, I'm not making a judgment on that, believes himself to be truly above certain things and of a different standard and to be catered to and something of soccer royalty, that can have a disruptive effect on your entire rest of your roster.
But was this maybe just friction with Mikey Varas and he didn't necessarily jibe with that?
Phil,
and could Nico Estevez maybe?
Let me point to something on his chart that you like so much.
Yes.
That does worry me.
Okay.
Pass completion percentage.
Yeah, okay.
Where's his pass completion percentage?
It's not great.
It's not great.
But everything else is great.
If you're bringing in a guy who's very expensive, who is known to take issue with coaches he believes are beneath him, which is most, if not all coaches in the world, who expects to just be fed and nothing else, do you do that with a roster that you've purpose built to involve a whole lot of dynamic position switching?
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
There is that, but he's very shot happy. He is towards the very, very top tier in the men's next 14 competitions in terms of shots total. But he's also up there in terms of assists. He's also up there in terms of shot creating actions. So while he doesn't complete a lot of passes and attempts a decent amount of passes, when he does do that, it generally tends to result in chances. So that to me is something that is encouraging and enticing. And again, he had a pretty dysfunctional season last year, all told, but still had a goal contribution every 96 minutes, which is not the kind of production that we've seen out of anybody playing for Austin in 2025. So, I mean, it's enticing. I don't think it happens. Ultimately, this is just spitballing. We are in the weird patch.
Wouldn't it be
before
wild,
we actually get preseason news, but yeah,
look,
wouldn't it be wild?
Christian Espinoza plays for Nashville now, and everybody thought he was going to LAFC. So
exactly,
crazy things happen, right? And honestly, I would be surprised if Austin was not in that process of probably trying to get him, or
Yeah, I
seeing
would
what
imagine
getting
so.
him would take. But yeah, I think group cohesion is, especially after what we saw last year, where there was a lot of promise. Austin got to an Open Cup final. I keep having to underline this because people act like Austin had a universally bad season last season. And they did not. There were some really lousy dips. There were some bad slides. But last season, to me, was a better example of real growth as a club than anything else. And yeah, I don't know. I think the group cohesion thing alone, and all kinds of conversations happen between coaches and sporting directors and players and that sort of thing. And like Lozano got done dirty by Mr. Lindsey Horan. Like Lindsey Horan's husband, aka Tyler Heaps, that I'm just, what negotiating leverage? Who needs negotiating leverage? And then Mikey Varas yes-anded it. That sporting operation decided to make sure that if they came at the king, they did not miss. So setting him up as that kind of a damaged asset, to argue with myself for a moment, let's say somehow or another Austin did bring Chucky Lozano in. Let's say somehow that happened. The only way that I could see it happening is he has a massive chip on his shoulder and wants to do nothing more than absolutely destroy San Diego FC and the entire Western Conference.
And that's fine.
And that's fine. That's fine. But on its face, if I'm playing EAFC 26, sure, I will bring Chucky Lozano onto my Austin team. In real life, that just feels like a pile of volatility and locker room madness that this club would like to just keep its head down and stay consistent and get better at what they were getting better at.
Yeah, and I get that, but I would argue a U.S. Open Cup final and a U.S. Open Cup did not have the best teams in the league. It's almost like, for college basketball fans, it's almost kind of like playing in the NIT, right? So you've got CONCACAF Champions Cup, which is featuring all the really, really good teams, and then you've got U.S. Open Cup, which is honestly the next tier. Nashville will not be able to actually defend their U.S. Open Cup because they have qualified for CCC next year or this year now that we are in 2026. And that is just kind of the reality of it. My thinking is, yes, on one hand, I thought Austin had a good season this year for what they were capable of. I think they got close to what their ceiling is. And again, 6th place in the West, obviously knocked out by LAFC in the first round. LAFC is a good team, obviously. And that's just kind of it, right? So they
down a primary DP.
Yeah, they perform near their ceiling, but their ceiling is lower than the top teams in the West ceiling can be because of the level of talent they have compared to the rest of the league. And Austin has good players. They have fine players. We obviously, as fans, are going to root for them, and they're nice guys, and we hope for good things. But putting a Lozano on this team would raise that talent level, would raise that bar, and it's higher risk, but it's also higher reward, theoretically.
Raises the talent level on paper in charts. I don't know that him individually doesn't also create a displacing effect to the amount of the rest of the talent that they're actually able to take advantage of.
That's the risk. And can Estevez create a kind of cohesion with him and the rest of the team? Can he have a kind of calming, focusing effect on Lozano that maybe Mikey Varas didn't have for him last year?
Yeah, I mean, if there is a way to tame the tiger, nothing would make me happier. But it just, on its face, look, if Austin made that move, then I would believe it more possible than I do right at the moment.
Yeah. You know what else that move would do, though?
What else would it do?
Move a lot of new 2026 jerseys.
That is true. That is true. That is true. Speaking of moves, Phil.
Yes.
Former Austin FC2 head coach Brett Utley just picked up a job as an assistant coach at FC Cincinnati.
Which is great for him.
Great for him.
Great for Cincinnati, too.
Very bad for anybody facing FC Cincinnati.
Yeah, that's a great move for him to get into the MLS ranks, to be an assistant coach, and to be an assistant coach in a system like that with Pat Noonan, with Chris Albright as their sporting director. It's a fantastic place for him to be. It's a really, really good soccer organization. He gets to coach Evander. That's fun.
Yeah, it's for a coach like him who is so good with developmental talent, knowing that their developmental pipeline is what it is. That's who you want as an assistant coach bringing in and getting your younger players ready to show up big on the biggest stages. The Eastern Conference is going to be really interesting this year, and that's going to be a fascinating place for him to be.
Right. And again, as we are moving to divisions, as we are moving to a single table, we are not long for Western and Eastern conferences. But yeah, I do expect that to be incredibly competitive. Again, because look at the talent influx, right? And look at Nashville all of a sudden, which can have a front line of Hani Mukhtar, Sam Surridge, and Christian Espinoza if you want. Like, that's amazing.
That's nuts.
How many more goals is Surridge going to score? I mean,
far too many.
No Nashville fan should be wanting to get a Sam Surridge butt tattoo, because I do think he's going to win the Golden Boot.
Yeah, that is. I'll put it this way: that looks so promising before the preseason, before the season starts. Mm-hmm. It feels like karmically there is going to be some misfortune that befalls them that results in that not working out, like somebody getting an unfortunate preseason injury. I'm not cursing him. I'm just saying it looks too good to be true. Something going to happen. Or they have the biggest luck in the league and they're headed for the Supporters Shield and MLS Cup.
And they essentially swapped out Walker Zimmerman for Christian Espinoza, which I think you would take, given...
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Zimmerman's been a great center back, obviously, but if you have a chance to upgrade and have a DP as an attacker on that caliber with the team that they already have, I think you do that, and then you figure out the defense later.
And Zimmerman couldn't stay healthy. 2022 Zimmerman, very different than 2024 or 2025 Zimmerman.
Right. And now we'll get to see him with Dallas.
Yeah. Anything else, Phil? I guess we've got the preseason practice on Monday, which, barring other complications, I should be able to make. Nice. And report back from. I guess we'll stay tuned, and if we do get a jersey leak, watch for that emergency podcast.
Yeah, that's what we do. So yeah, if there's a kit leak, if anybody out there has seen anything, we laughed at the original footy headline rendering and turned out to be pretty spot on. It's like, no way. That
neck looks wrong.
Terrible.
And now it's like, no, I get how the neck works now. Okay, it looks good.
I mean, of course, a much better version of what was rendered initially.
Right. The other thing that I was going to throw out before we close, that just came to mind as you were talking about this thing and this other thing happening. It's a World Cup year. The Brazil Federation is talking about meeting early next month to discuss their participation in the World Cup. Like,
wait, what?
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
Okay.
But I guess that's what happens when one of the host nations invades a South American nation and takes over their oil industry.
Yeah.
Things are going to keep being weird on the world stage. And just in terms of soccer, USL Players Union and USL don't have a collective bargaining agreement, and their season may just not start.
Uh-oh. Okay.
So there's lots of crazy stuff that's going to go on this year in the world of soccer. That is my prediction, and you can take it to the bank.
Yeah, it's gonna be a weird year, I think. So obviously, even without the tumult that's going on, with it being a World Cup year, with Leagues Cup insisting on being played, despite maybe not necessarily needing Leagues Cup this year, we'll take that in. Austin's going to be involved, so clearly we'll be keeping an eye on that. Those games do tend to be fun and chaotic, so it's not that I don't enjoy Leagues Cup, it's just that I don't know exactly how Leagues Cup fits into all of this. Yes, it's on the calendar, it's there, but in terms of players and health and quality of soccer with exhausted players, we'll see where that goes. And then just the hosting and all of the tumult that is going to happen. It's going to be interesting, and we'll be here for the entire ride. And again, as we look to the start of the season here in basically about 6 weeks, it looks like. I think as of today, it's 6 weeks away. That is wild. So clearly this is not the final roster, even though it is a full roster. So definitely we'll be reporting on all of this and letting y'all know our thoughts as things transpire. It's exciting though. It's good that soccer's back, and very excited that in a little over 3 weeks time, we're all going to be back in Q2, or many of us will be back in Q2 to watch actual real life soccer.
This is the best thing I've heard in the history of the 8 years I've been on this planet.